Hello, everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 648, The Late Appointment. Intermediate. Sarah felt the cold evening air on her face as she hurried down the street. Her throat was sore, and a cough had been bothering her for a week. She had a late appointment at the doctor's surgery, and she was already a few minutes late. She pushed open the heavy glass door. A small bell above it jingled loudly. The waiting room was empty except for one other person. A man sat in a chair in the corner, holding a magazine. The air was quiet, and the only sound was the low hum of a computer behind the reception desk. The smell of disinfectant was strong. A woman with tired eyes sat behind the desk. "Hello," Sarah said, giving her name. The receptionist did not look up. She simply pointed to a sign on the wall. "Wait," the sign said in big red letters. Sarah sat down, pulling her coat tight around her. She looked at the man in the corner. He did not look at her. He just turned the pages of his magazine, one by one. The silence was unusual. Normally this room was full of children crying and people coughing. After 5 minutes, the door to a small office opened. A man in a white coat stood there. "Mr. Peterson," he called. The man in the corner got up and went into the office. The doctor closed the door quietly. Sarah frowned. She was sure she was Mr. Peterson. Her last name was also Peterson, and she had arrived first. It was strange. She could hear a low noise from the office, like a muffled argument, but it quickly stopped. A few minutes later, the office door opened again. The man came out and walked quickly to the exit without looking at the receptionist. He seemed pale and in a hurry. The small bell jingled again. Now Sarah was alone. She looked at the clock on the wall. It was getting very late. She stood up and went to the desk. The receptionist was gone. The computer screen was dark. Sarah felt a shiver run down her back. A sudden cold draught came from a hallway at the back of the room. A squeaking noise came from the same direction. Sarah felt she should leave, but she needed to see the doctor. She walked towards the hallway. The squeaking noise came from a door at the end. It was the door to the cleaning closet. The door was slightly open. She pushed it gently and it opened completely. Inside, she saw the receptionist tied to a chair. Her mouth was taped and she was crying silently. Sarah pulled the tape from her mouth. "The doctor!" the receptionist whispered. "That's not the doctor. The real doctor is in his office. He's been tied up." Sarah ran back to the doctor's office. She opened the door. The man in the white coat was kneeling by a cabinet. He was putting small bottles into a bag. He looked up and his eyes were full of surprise and fear. He was not the doctor. He was an imposter. The real Dr. Williams was tied to his chair, just as the receptionist had said. The man grabbed his bag and ran. Sarah screamed and ran after him, out of the office and into the street. A police car was driving past. Sarah waved her arms wildly. The police car stopped. The officers looked at her. "He's in there," she cried, pointing back at the surgery. "He's a thief." The 2 police officers went inside. They came out a few minutes later holding the man in handcuffs. He had been stealing drugs from the surgery. Dr. Williams and the receptionist were fine, a little shaken but not hurt. Sarah's cough still bothered her, but for some reason she felt much better. She was no longer just a patient. She was a hero. Vocabulary notes. Appointment. Definition. A formal arrangement to meet or visit someone at a particular time. Example. She had a late appointment at the doctor's surgery. Similar words. Meeting. Consultation. Reservation. Surgery. Definition. In the UK, a place where a doctor or dentist works. Example. At the doctor's surgery, and she was already a few minutes late. Similar words. Clinic. Office. Practice. Frown. Definition. To make a serious, angry, or worried expression by bringing your eyebrows closer together. Example. Sarah frowned. She was sure she was Mr. Peterson. Similar words. Scowl. Glare. Grimace. Imposter. Definition. A person who pretends to be someone else in order to deceive others. Example. He was not the doctor. He was an imposter. Similar words. Fraud. Fake. Deceiver. Shaken. Definition. Upset or shocked by an unpleasant event. Example. Dr. Williams and the receptionist were fine, a little shaken but not hurt. Similar words. Startled. Shocked. Disturbed. Story written by Gemini AI. Image created by onemin.ai. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're not just going to read a short story. Nope, we are going to take it apart, piece by piece, to see exactly how an author can use just a few simple words and observations to build some seriously powerful suspense. You know that feeling, right? That little itch in the back of your brain that tells you something in the room just isn't quite right. Well, we're about to dive into a story that kicks off with that exact feeling, and it turns what should have been a totally normal evening into something else. So, meet Sarah. She's got a sore throat. She's going to the doctor. It's about as normal as it gets. But what's so clever here is how the author uses this completely ordinary setup as a launch pad for suspense, right from the very first paragraph. Okay, let's start at the beginning. The author does something really clever here. They paint a picture that seems ordinary on the surface, but it just feels subtly, undeniably wrong. Okay, so right away we get these details. It's not just a waiting room, it's almost empty. The air isn't just clean, it's heavy with that chemical smell. This creates this cold, sterile vibe, and that's the first layer of suspense the author is building. And then you get the human element, or really, the lack of one. The receptionist doesn't even look up. She just points. The only communication is this big, red, bossy sign. Every single detail here is designed to be unwelcoming, to put both Sarah and us, the readers, on edge from the get-go. So that initial uneasy feeling, it's about to turn into real suspicion, because now the author starts dropping these little breadcrumbs, these clues that something is seriously wrong. This is such a great example of how powerful it is to break our expectations. Think about it. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't a loud noise. It's the total lack of the sounds you expect to hear. This quiet is loud. It's practically screaming that something is off. And when you see it laid out like this, the contrast is just wow. The author takes everything we know about a doctor's office and just flips it upside down. It makes the whole scene feel completely jarring it out of place. Now, here's the thing. It's not one big, obvious problem. It's a series of little things that just don't add up. The wrong name gets called, there's a weird sound, some guy rushes out looking freaked out. All these little events start to stack up, and we feel like we're a detective right there with Sarah trying to figure out what is going on. This is that moment, right? The signs are all there. For Sarah, this is the turning point. Does she ignore that gut feeling, or does she figure out what's happening? This is exactly where the story pivots from just watching things happen to actively investigating. And you know what? She decides to investigate. This is where the tension really ramps up, as Sarah's quiet little feeling of unease just explodes into a full-blown, terrifying discovery. Notice how the author keeps using these sharp sensory details. The desk isn't just unmanned. The computer screen is dark. She doesn't just feel a breeze, it's a cold draft. Every word is chosen to make you feel isolated and to make you feel like danger is right around the corner. And there it is, the big reveal. The line that pays off all that buildup. In just one whispered sentence, all those weird clues, all that unease, it all clicks into place and makes horrifying, perfect sense. This is the aha moment. Or maybe it's the oh no moment. An imposter. He's not the doctor. And just like that, it all makes sense. The doctor's office isn't just weird, it's been taken over. And Sarah has walked right into the middle of it. So what happens now? Well, this final part of the story isn't just about how the crime gets solved. No, what's more important is how this whole thing completely transforms our main character, Sarah. This is the moment. This is her choice. She could have run, and honestly, who would blame her? But she doesn't. She acts. And that one decision instantly changes her from a passive patient just waiting for her name to be called to an active hero who takes charge of the whole situation. I mean, just look at this transformation. It's incredible. She walked in as a patient, literally following a sign that told her to wait. She leaves as a hero, taking charge. It's a complete 180, all because of what happened that night. And I absolutely love this final thought from the author. It's so clever. It tells us that the real story here isn't just about the crime, it's about Sarah. Yeah, her throat still hurts, but her actions have healed something way deeper. They've empowered her. Okay, before we wrap this up, let's quickly peek into the author's toolbox and look at a few specific words they use to build this amazing story. The whole thing kicks off with a totally normal word, appointment. It's so mundane, which is exactly why it's the perfect, unsuspecting start for the crazy events that are about to unfold. This is such a simple action, but it's so important. This one word, frowned, is the first crack in the facade. It's the exact moment Sarah stops just accepting things and starts to think, wait a minute, that's not right. It's the birth of her suspicion. And finally, this word, shaken. After all the action is over, this little word does so much work. It's a powerful reminder of the real fear and the real danger involved, and it reminds us why what Sarah did was so heroic. And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? After breaking down this story, it feels like the answer isn't just about the weird things that happen to us, it's about how we choose to react to them. Sarah's sore throat brought her there, sure, but it was her choice to act that turned an ordinary patient into an amazing hero.